Roland, you want to say something? So if you want to say something, you can just drop your message in the chat window. I'll do my best to respond. Thank you. All right. So in our last lesson, we talked about the different kinds of database management that we have. We talked about what each of them is best known for or their best use cases. I'm also going to share you a blog post in relation to database management studios and what they are best known for. But I know that I've shared you a link for how to install SQL on your system, and I'll assume that we've all done that. So this morning we are going to dive into what we are supposed to be doing as a data analyst when it comes to managing our data. So the other day I said something about make create four things that data analysts usually do, which is CRUD, create, you read, you update, and you delete. So basically, these are things that we're going to be doing as an analyst or an SQL developer or database manager. But today we're going to start with creating an instance. So when we say create can come in different forms. We can be creating a database, we can be creating a table, we can be creating a stop procedure, we can be creating triggers, and all of that. So I'm just going to list out that operation right here, CRUD. C for create, R for read, U for update, and then D for delete. Okay, so basically these are the four operations we are going to be performing. These are the operations we are going to be doing in SQL. But I know it looks simple, right? CRUD, right? Let's just do everything today. It's not possible. So this instance can come in different forms. We might be creating database instance, reading tables, reading schemas, and all of that. So we're just going to take this one by one. All right. So the first one, create. Just like I said, we are going to be creating instance. So the first thing you want to do if you do not have an existing database is to create one. I can show you the list of some of the databases I have on my system. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about like more than 10 here. And I can decide to use any one of this. Okay. As time goes on, we're going to be uploading a backup recovery file, which I'm going to share us the link to later, but we don't need that at the moment. We need to understand how this file was created. So we are going to run through that process now. So now, as a data analyst or data engineer or a data scientist, whichever field we want to go into, we want to be able to relate with a database. So how do we create that database? I mean, if we are working for an organization that already has a database, we want to have an idea of how that kind of database was created, and if possible, how to make manipulations to it. So let's create a database. So to create a database, so right here I'm just going to write a brief explanation of what I'm about to do, and then I'm going to do it. So we want to create a database. Okay, so how do I create a database? I use the word create, and then the instance I want to create, database. So let's say I want to create a table now. That's what I'm going to do. Create table and then the name. Create view and then the view. Create stop procedure and then that. Create trigger and then that. But right now we are creating database. So we are doing create database and the name of the database that we want to create. So let's assume that we want to create a database called let's say order details. or something like that. So I just say order details. I hope I don't have that here. No, I don't. So let's say I want to create this database. Create database order details. I just end this command and I run it like this. Now this database has been created. So if I scroll down now, if I check this, you can see I now have order details here. So now confirming that I have other details, which means I can now use this database I've created. So how do I use this database? So I have to tell SQL that I want to use this particular database. So how do I tell SQL that I want to use the database? So to use the database, I need to tell SQL to use, I use the word use to tell SQL that I want to use that database. So I say use and then the database name. So if I want to use any of this too, I could just say use and then the name of the database that I actually want to use. But right now, I'm just sticking to this. Just run that. No errors. So the question you might want to ask me is that now I have the database created. I'm telling SQL that I want to use this database now. What happens when I delete this? Does that mean that the database is gone? No, it's not gone. So anything I write here, once I execute that, it's no longer, it doesn't make a difference whatever I do to it. So if I delete this now, that does not mean that the database is deleted or that the database no longer exists. Once I've executed that line of code, the database instance still remains the same. It doesn't change the instance I've executed. So I'll be leaving this because I want to upload this file when I'm done so that we can revisit it and just for us to have as a note for this class. Okay, so we've created the database now and we've told SQL that we want to use that database. So now that we've done that, the next thing we want to do, just like our SQL workbooks, our workbook has a name, so think of this as an SQL workbook. Right now I just created an SQL workbook. Now I want to create an Excel. Let's think of this as an Excel workbook, and then Excel workbook has a name and has sheets in it. So now at the moment I just created an Excel workbook name or instance, and in a workbook we can have like tons of worksheets. But in SQL we say we want to have tables, and a table will have columns and rows. So the next thing I want to do right now is to create tables in this database. So remember I said something the other day about a table residing or tables residing in a database. So that's what we're going to do. So I want to create a table. So at the moment I don't want to have to think about the table that I want to create. So I'm going to use the same file that we used when we were doing Excel. So the same I think order details or something, employee data, I can't remember. I think I have it here. Just gonna look for it. Okay, I think it should be here. One of this one. So this same table that we used when we're doing Excel, that's the same table that we're going to create a database from. Okay, so we have this workbook right here, and this workbook has 3 worksheets. Okay, the first worksheet is the customer information, we have orders information, we have phone numbers. So now let's try to understand what this is and how we are going to create a table instance of this. So we know that we have customer ID, right? We have customer ID, we have first name, last name, gender, city, and country. And in this other details has the order ID. So I'm just going to change this OMR whatever to order ID. So we have order ID, we have customer ID, which is relating to this customer sheet right here. And then we have the order dates, we have the products, we have the quantity, we have the unit price. And then lastly, we have phone number, and the phone number has the customer ID and the phone number. All right, so the first table we want to create now is the customer table. So we know that our customer table will have all of this right here. So the next question you might want to ask me is, how do we create this? So now let me go back to my SQL. So we want to create a table. We want to create a table for customer. We say create table, and then the name of the table that I want to create, customer. So now inside this table, SQL expects that you pass in the parameters that you want to create, which in our case would be these columns right here: customer ID, first name, last name, gender, city, and country. So now I want to create this instance. I'm just going to say customer ID, or I could just say ID. The next one, let me say, is first name, last name. So at no point should you put space in between two words. So you can either have it in snake case or in camel case. So snake case is when you use caps uppercase for the next word. So just like you are joining two words together, and then at the start of a new word you capitalize that word. So that's camel case. But snake case is you joining two words together with an underscore like this. But I'm just going to stick to camel case. Okay, please, if your mic is unmuted, kindly mute yourself. I just got a sound and it hit inside my head. I'm using headphone, and any little sound like that goes into my brain. So if you are unmuted, please kindly mute yourself. Thank you. So we have first name, we have last name, we have gender, we have city, and we have country. Now the next question, are we just going to create this like that? Are we just going to create a table like this? I mean, is this how it's supposed to be? Looks simple. Okay, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're just listing out all the instances that we want to create, but that's not how we're going to create it. So we want to tell SQL what this instance will take. So ID is supposed to take in like a number instance or a data type of number. First name is supposed to take like varchar, last name is supposed to take like something like that. But then how do we know which one to use? So the next thing we want to talk about now is data type. So data types in SQL. So permit me to pull up material. I think it should be this one. I could share us this file, but probably later. So it's trying to check. Okay, so this is not too she's better now. So data types in SQL. So we have data types ranging from numeric to string to boolean to date or date time. So under numeric, we have exact numeric, which could be integer. An integer can fall in this range minus 2, what is this, 2 billion to plus 2 billion. All right, and we have small int which can actually fall into the range of minus 32,000 to plus 32,000. We have big int which could fall into, I think this is quintillion or thereabout. And this is one at 1 2 3 4 5 6 as quintillion. So and then positive side of it, so whichever one you want to create, I'm sure that most times you always fall into this category of integer. All right, and then we have numeric, we have decimal, which is your whole number, and then fraction. We have real, we have double, we have float, and then we have the string data type. So the string data type has a couple of other like subcategory, like character, which is char. So char can be, by default, char takes in one character, but then char can take in about 255 characters. So 0 to 254 is the length, is the maximum is the maximum length of character that you can use for char. Please excuse me. So but then it's important that when you are using char, you specify the count of character that you want to use. Okay, we have varchar, which is character varying, which has the maximum length of 32,672. We have club, which we use for Unicode and all of that. We might use this when you are dealing with large data, but at the moment I doubt it. And then we have date time, we have dates. So the date format SQL accepts is year, month, and day. And then we have time, which is hour, minute, and seconds. We have date time, which is the combination of these two: year, month, and day, hour, minute, and seconds. So it's important that when you're writing a date format, that it's in this format. Or if you're writing a date, if you want to create a table that takes in data type, it has to be in year, month, and day format. Otherwise, SQL is going to return an error right there. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to purposely, insert a wrong date format so that we can see what's going on there. So now we have timestamp. We have UTC, we have different timestamps. So if you want to write a project and you want to use a timestamp of a particular region, you can use that here using this timestamp format. Most times you use this when you're having a project and then you want to use a particular timestamp for a particular region. You use that. And then we have boolean, which can come in true, false, or null. So now that we have that sorted out, let's create a table. So we agree that int, if you look at our table, our worksheets here, you'd see that this is a number. Okay, how do you launch the SQL you downloaded? Sorry, I'm just saying that. Okay, so the SQL you downloaded is different from the SQL I downloaded. I explained this the other time, and I told you that that's because I'm using a different operating system with you. You're using Windows, I'm using Mac. I told you that the SQL instance that you've installed doesn't work on Mac operating system. Roland, if you want to ask a question, please kindly drop it in the chat window. Thank you. So if you want to start up the one that you've downloaded, just type SSMS or management on your search bar on your system, and then it brings out this Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So you just click on that, and it could take like 10-15 seconds before it pops up. And when it pops up, it brings this server instance that you should connect. So just click on connect, and then you connect to the server. I'm sorry, I'm just getting the message now, but I hope you are able to understand, do that. So Roland, I would appreciate if you could just drop your message in the chat window. Thank you. All right, so now that we have that sorted out, so let's create a table. So we know that this is customer ID, first name, last name, gender, city, and country. So we can fix in integer for this particular column and fix in varchar for other columns. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. It's going to say int. So now the next question you might want to ask me is that, is there a difference? Now if I do int like this, it still works. If I do caps int or small int like that, it still works. So what's the difference? There's no difference, but it's good convention that when you're writing your SQL query, that the SQL keyword is different from the variable that you're introducing. What do I mean? I could decide to have it in this format, but then it almost looks like this variable that I'm trying to create. So I want my SQL commands to look different from I want my SQL commands to be different from the variables I'm creating. So I'm just going to stick to the uppercase method for clarity. All right, so I'm just going to say varchar here, and then I'm going to tell SQL the maximum character I'm expecting this instance to take. I know that no matter how strong or how long or how lengthy your first name is, it can't be 100 character long. So I'm just going to put 100 there, and then for last name, just going to do the same. For gender, I know that the maximum I can take for gender is 6. It's either F for female and for male, or if I want to spell that all correct, I can say FEMALE. That's the maximum. So I'm just going to put varchar here again, and I'm going to use 6 characters. Alright, sorry. And city, same thing. City could have like 100. I know we can have like a city be 100 long, 100 character long. That's I don't think we have any city like that. Even 50 character safe. I'm not so sure we have. But let's just assume that we have 100 character long city. All right. So the country, I'm just gonna use the same. All right, and then that's it. Let's create this. Now that is created. No issues. All right, no issues. So this table I've created now has bugs in it, but I know that because I know why I said it has bugs. So now let's insert value into this, and let's see the bugs that we have. So now we've created the table. Say create table, in database, or create table named, let's say customer, like that. So now let's insert into the table. Let's insert records in the table. Okay. Yeah, I'm recording the session. Okay, now that that's done, we want to insert into this. So we'd say we tell SQL the name of the table that we want to insert into, and then we insert the values. So insert into, so insert into which table? Customer. Okay, and what do you want to insert? I want to insert ID, I want to insert first name, I want to insert last name, I want to insert gender, I want to insert city, I want to insert country. That's it. Okay, so the next thing should be values, right? So the values I want to insert into this table, values. So now this is where it gets hard. Doesn't necessarily get hard, but this is where we can actually get everything wrong. So we need to like be careful here. We need to specify the column names or the variable that we've actually created in the table, the exact way we've created it. You can see that it's the same thing, nothing is changed. I'm not saying first name like this. I'm not saying first name like this. If I say first name like this, it's going to tell me that it doesn't exist. So it has to be the same way you created that. Alright, so now that's been done, let's insert values in it. So I'm just going to go back to the Excel file. Kind of like SQL and Excel kind of like sounds familiar. I want to say SQL, I'm saying Excel. No, I want to say Excel, I'm saying SQL. Yeah. Okay, so now let's create this one. Let's insert this first value here, this first record, just this one. You can see that it's the same format. ID comes first, first name comes next, last name comes next, gender comes next, city comes next, country comes last. Just that same way. It has to be that same format. Otherwise, you're going to be inserting values into the wrong column. So this first one is integer, so we can just leave it that way. We separate with a comma. The next one is the first name is in varchar. So every word or every instance that is a varchar, we need to have that in a quote like this. We need to put quotation, comma. I'm just going to quote everything, comma, quote this too, comma, quote this, comma, quote this. Alright, that's done. So let's insert. Inserted. Can you see? No errors. One role affected. Time, total time of execution. Blah 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 blah. So now let's see what we have done. So to read from a table, we use select. So we say select everything from customer, like that. Voila, our data is there. So we have our ID, first name, last name, gender, city, and country, and it's looking very pretty. So now, you remember the other time I said something about I've written a bug? So let me show you the bug that I've written, and let me show you what I mean by like the bug part. So if I run this command again, if I run this insert again, let's see what's going to happen. One row affected. Let's run it like a couple of times. Again, like this. So that's it. I have 4 instances of 10001. Just imagine. Where do I start from? You know, you can have different duplicates there. So we can have like tons of duplicate values taking the same ID, and I'm sure you don't want that. So we need to find a way to deal with that. So another error I can have, or another bug I can eventually have, is let's say when I was inserting I have this record I did not have, maybe like city or like country, for example. Let's say I remove this ID and I remove it here too. Okay, and I run this. One role affected. You see, it was inserted, but then I have null because I didn't put in a value for that int. So it's just going to represent that missing column with null. So I need to find a way to fix that. Also, I can, you know, remove a couple of records. I could say another one, I want to get rid of this country, and get rid of this, and I run this again. So you can see I'm having this row null, and the country is also missing, and which I know you don't want to do, because let's say you need to sort product by category, by city or by country, and you're having a product with a country null. I mean, where do you want to start from? Of course, if you have a city, you can probably redirect that to having okay, that's in Japan or something. But let's say you don't have city. Let's say it's like this. Let's say there's no city there. So it's just like this. So I say it like this. Now tell me, where do you want to start from? Where? No city, no country. That's a lot of work to do. And no ID. Just imagine. So we need to find a way. We can't see your work here. Okay, what do you mean you can't see my work? Oh, you mean the Excel file? Oh, okay. Just hold on. Let me do something about that. But I'm sure we have the Excel file, right? So, okay, but I'm sharing the whole thing now. Let's see.